pause in conflict, a pause in fight, is actually going to allow, as you said, Hamas time to regroup, rethink, and possibly potentially plan another strike against IDF, which would be even more deadlier than the fighting we're seeing now.
We begin with the latest in Israel's war with Hamas. Today, Israel stepped up its massive ground offensive with its troops entering the Hamas stronghold of Gaza City. The Israeli military says that Israeli soldiers are fighting face-to-face battles with Hamas, with Israeli airstrikes leveling whole blocks in Gaza. And Israel's sworn enemy, Iran, is warning Israel of consequences if they expand their assault. Iran, which funds Hamas as well as other terror groups, Hezbollah, to Israel's north, is a wild card in the war. We're joined now by Don Brammer, a former official in the George H.W. Bush administration. Don, welcome back to the show. It's good to see you.
Good to see you, Lindsay. Thank you.
Okay, so Iran keeps making many threats, but these latest comments where they say there will be consequences do represent an escalation here. So how seriously should the U.S. be taking this saber rattling from them?
Well, I think, as always, we should take every threat with certain capabilities and probability. However, we have to remember, Iran's been making threats for decades, as long as you and I have been around. This new set of threats, however, it's cumbersome. But Iran knows that we have two carrier groups in the region, and we've already shown just last week that their attacks against U.S. forces and U.S. troops in the region will come with consequence with the two airstrikes that we led. So if they want to get into a fight, then they have to realize that so will our allies and so will the United States. So do they really want to pick that battle at this time, or do they just want to let their puppets, their proxies, do the battles for them?
So President Biden made quite the news yesterday when he said that he thinks there should be a pause in fighting in order to get prisoners out of Gaza. Knowing that the hostage count has actually gone up now, is that wise, or would that give Hamas time to recalibrate, even if it was a couple hours, as the White House says it should be?
Well, you have to understand, Hamas operates in a series of tunnels underneath Palestine. It's about 300 miles of tunnels. Those tunnels go in front of IDF troops, they're beside them, and they're behind them. So a pause in conflict, a pause in fight, is actually going to allow, as you said, Hamas time to regroup, rethink, and possibly potentially plan another strike against IDF, which would be even more deadlier than the fighting we're seeing now. Fortunately, with the IDF, we're only looking at less than 10 casualties as this fighting continues. But each of those tunnels is where Hamas moves hostages, moves its resources, and puts further Palestinians and hostages, even U.S. hostages, at risk.
So even from the White House podium today, spokesperson John Kirby, he furthered that message, Don, saying that the administration is going to be fighting for as many pauses as possible to get people out of Gaza safely. We know that Secretary of State Antony Blinken is going to the region to continue this fight for these pauses. What message does this send to Hamas?
I think that it shows that we're with a soft, a weakened White House that doesn't want to encourage this fighting. But we also have to remember, Israel is a sovereign nation. And while President Biden and other world leaders can ask for a pause, this is Israel's fight. And just like the United States defended itself after 9/11, this is time for Israel to stand up for its citizens and those who are in danger and those who've already been killed by Hamas.